Hey Sheila, thank you so much for joining us here. It's really good to talk with you. Thank you
Hey,
for
thanks for having me on.
making the time. So before we get started on the new exciting venture, I wanted just to ask a few questions about your own personal adventures in board games. What was the
Yeah.
first thing that put you into board games?
Oh, great question. So I used to play a lot of games growing up, which I think is probably similar to a lot of people. But I remember like when we were kids with my dad, we'd always play cards when we went away on holiday. And it kind of started with like gin rummy and maybe like sort of the simpler games, and eventually progressed up to poker, which was great as a child because like you get to practice like set collection and a little bit of like bluffing, which obviously as a teenager or as a child, your parents obviously like I know what's going on. People are like, oh, I'm totally bluffing them. So that was kind of my real introduction to games as such. But I think my real gateway game in terms of like games as we know it sort of in the modern day is really Catan, which
Right.
is such a classic. And it was sort of there that I was like, oh yeah, there's all these great games out there, loads of really new, exciting ones that are really different from what's in the market when I was a kid, which is really, really cool. There's so many amazing games out there, and one of the things that I remember when I first started was where do you even start? Like, how do you even decide what game to play next? There's so many great ones, and I feel like since obviously now as a very old adult, there's even more games out there, and it's progressed so much in the last couple of years as well. There's loads of great designers, and I think Kickstarter's really helped get independent game designers onto the platform where previously you wouldn't be able to access people. So that's really what Borrow Game is about, as well as being able to help people with this amazing selection of games that there is out there and be able to access them and to try them and try new things, which I think is really great.
Sure. So you mentioned board game. You started a couple of weeks ago, so very fresh. Tell us first of all about the basic mechanics. People go on, they browse, they choose a game, and then they get sent the game, and they keep it for as long as they want, send it back, and then go again on a subscription basis, right?
Pretty much, you've literally just nailed my nailed it for me. Um, but yeah, so the premise of it is that it makes it it's a more affordable way of playing games.
Mm.
So literally as you said, you can go online, have a browse, have a look at whatever the collection is. So the subscription allows you access to the entire collection. So it's kind of like a board game cafe. Just
Mm.
we send it to your home instead. So for a lot of people around the country who don't have a local board game cafe, this is a great way of sort of trying out a new collection or new games that they might not be able to try out otherwise. But yeah, you order it online. We ship it to your house. You play it for as long as or as short as you want, and when you're done, you ship it back. And then once you've shipped it back, you choose your next game, and we ship your next game to you. And literally just as long or as little as you want.
Mm.
So it's really exciting. And as you mentioned, yes, we've only just launched a week ago now. We went live officially, and the first week has been really exciting. We've had loads of really good responses, so that's always good to hear.
It must be so exciting launching a new business, but also just crazy nerve-wracking because you've got no idea what the response is. You could have like 10 people sign up, you could have 1,000 people sign up. Like, how do you prepare for something like that? Is it just a case of wait and see, or can you plan ahead?
I mean, so we've officially launched a week ago, but in reality, I've been working on this for a couple of months in the background, and in those couple of months, we've been talking to as many people as we can. We've been doing a lot of market research, and that kind of gave us an idea of what the level of interest is. That being said, I think I'm still kind of like, is it real that actually? Because I think the response that we got was so much better than I'd even expected. Obviously when you're asking people about market research, everyone's like, yeah, cool, this is I really want to try new games, and this is a blocker for me, and how do I do this? And then now we've gone live, it's suddenly been like, oh my god, there's there's so many more people than we expected that are really interested, which
Mm.
is really, really great.
That's cool. So it's across the whole UK, right? So anywhere, England, Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland, this ships to you.
Yeah, so and as I was saying earlier, it's really for those people who want to try new games but don't necessarily maybe have a board game cafe near them, or they don't,
Mm.
they might not have a local games group or something like that. It's really, I think that's one of the great things about shipping stuff through the post is that you can literally be anywhere in the UK and be able to access this entire games collection.
Sure.
So yeah.
So what gave you the idea for the business? What were you doing beforehand that made you think, okay, I'm going to just add this whole new online business to my life? What was the inspiration?
So I used to work in logistics and buying beforehand anyway, professionally. But one of the things, so in February this year, my husband and I both left our jobs in London, and we started cycling from. Oh, the plan was to cycle from London to Singapore, and obviously
Wow.
this was yeah, why not? It was one of those things that we're like, we just want to try something new, do something different, and Singapore is pretty much as far as you can go overland, without having to cross any water with a bike. You want to cycle, and then coronavirus hit, and we'd got as far as Montenegro, which is two
Wow.
and a half. Yeah, so we managed to get 2,500 kilometers,
Pretty fun.
which is
How long had that taken you?
it took us about 6 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, so we were on the
What's
road.
that averaging kilometers a day?
Um, Not sure. So there were some days that we did about 100K a day, and then there were some days where we just had rest days and we just explored the local areas and just kind of
Right.
ate as much food as we could.
This was just your husband and yourself thinking, let's just take some time out of work, just
Yeah.
relax, enjoy life for a bit, and just see what happens.
Yeah, literally.
Wow.
But then,
And
yeah,
what time of year was it when you were in Montenegro? Where were we in the timeline?
so it was spring. So we started cycling in the winter because the aim was to try and get through the Himalayas in the summer, so we wouldn't be cycling through cycling through as little snow as possible, really. But but then this was in spring this year, and then obviously coronavirus hit and all the country borders closed down, and we couldn't get through the borders, so we ended up coming back to the UK. And one of the things that because when yeah, well, when you were cycling, so what we were doing is we were cycling. We had our tent with us, and we had a lot of sleeping stuff and cooking equipment on the back of the bikes. And we were really just living out of the bags that we were carrying. And one of the things that I remember when we were packing up our flat, so we pretty much sold all our furniture when we left. Like we packed everything up and put it in storage. And one of the things I remember when we were packing up and putting everything in storage was I was so amazed at how many games that I had that I'd only played, but like I'd only played them once or twice. And there were some that that we bought that we never played, and it
Right.
was just like this shelf of like game shame that I was just packing away, and I was like, why haven't I played all these? We spent so much money on these games. So I remember when we came back, and I was kind of thinking, what would I do? And then I started talking to people about board games, and what is it that you would really like, people would really love that would help them play more games. Because like, I've had this really, I know that I have this whole shelf of games that I've never played. Like, are other people coming across this as well? Like, does everyone really just play their game once or twice? Like, am I the only one? And it was, and loads of people came back, and there was these, there were sort of two main themes that came back. And there was one which was, people don't really know what to play next, and that's why they're kind of like, I just don't know. There's so much choice out there. I just don't know where to start, and I don't want to invest in a game if I don't know that I'm going to like it. So it was kind of, they might play some games that they know about, but they weren't really trying anything new. And then the other group was kind of people who they really wanted to play more, and they'd seen some really cool stuff out there, but it was just so expensive. And so that was kind of where Borrow a Game came from, is trying to help that group of people out.
Wow. I mean, going from idea to actual business is quite a jump there. I mean, like it's a great idea, but how did the business come about? Did you have experience in web design and e-commerce and all that kind of stuff, or did you have to teach yourself?
Yeah, so a lot of it, I'd say, I've been really fortunate in my professional background before, in that I come from, so I've worked in logistics before, and I've worked for some of the big e-commerce players. If anyone wants to, they can look at my my LinkedIn. I'm not going to mention any of them. But so I've come from sort of e-commerce logistics background, which really really helped.
Sure.
I'd say there's definitely some things in there which I didn't have any clue to start with. So like actually building a website from scratch was something that I definitely had to learn. And there's really great loads of help out there. And there's loads of I've had loads of really great people help as well build it, which is you can't do everything by yourself. And I'm really fortunate I've got a team around me as well that sort of pick up things that I'm not so great on. So.
Cool. So who's helping you? Who is part of Borrow a Game?
So my husband is part of the team, and I've also got another couple of people who help with sort of the marketing, the advertising side of it as well. But I'd say I tend to do more the face stuff of it. I think if you've ever signed up to my newsletter, like it's.
Is this your full-time job then now?
Yeah. So I've just moved to Bath. So my husband and I have moved out of London, and I work mostly from home now, which is great. And I think, one of the really interesting things about being in the middle of coronavirus as well is that a lot of people are just working from home now, and it's just the complete norm, and people are so used to it. And so actually having, being able to work from home and have video calls with people about work things, everyone's just like, yeah, it's just the way it is.
It's become normal very quick, hasn't it?
Yeah, but it's great.
Amazing. So the site went live a week ago. It's all working. It's kind of going ahead. What is kind of your message to people who are going to watch this, who are in that category like you're talking about, that maybe that they're not sure what to buy next, or they are very much sort of person that buys a game and, like you said, only plays it once or twice, so is sort of sitting thinking, do I really want to pay 30-50 quid for this new game, or do I just want to try it and then have it for a bit and then get it back? Like, how do you think this is going to help the community? What's your message?
Yeah, so I think this is really about, so Borrow Game is really about helping people who want to try a new game. So our broader mission is making it simpler to play your next game. And so this is kind of the part that actually, if you want to try a new game that maybe you don't want to invest in, or that might normally be unaffordable for you to actually buy, this is a way of being able to play those games at a fraction of the cost.
So coming from logistics, is it all right if I ask you some very heavy logistical questions?
Yeah.
Because this is what I like the most about this sort of stuff. So I tried one of these things before, similar kind of idea, and it was brilliant, but for whatever reason, they're not around anymore. I don't really know why. So very glad that you've come about. But when I used them before, I was like completely freaking out because it was a trial thing and the games were coming to me brand new. So I was like popping them out. And, when you've got to do the pop out, sometimes the preparation isn't cut so well and it tears a bit. And when that's like your own game, that sucks a little bit. But when it's someone that you borrowed, I felt so guilty. Like, so in terms of like minor damages and scuffs and stuff, what's the vibe? How can you kind of put people's minds at ease there?
Yeah, so I think, by and large, so first of all, the games that we sent out are already prepared, if that makes sense. They've already been popped. And we send them out with a little bit of extra protection. So we'll send, like our cards are sleeved, and some of our more high-end games, we put extra protection on them. So just in case, just to help people feel a bit more relaxed. But by and large, I'd say the board gaming community is really good at looking after games, which I'm really impressed with. And actually, a lot of people probably have a little bit of a game collection already, and they know how to treat them. And actually, it's more about the playing of the game rather than just like, let's flip the table.
Sure.
So I've been pleasantly surprised about how little stuff that's come back that's not been playable. But we do, I fully expect things like people going through the rule book and those kind of minor wear and tear. That's absolutely not a problem.
Will there be options for people if they borrow the game off you and they absolutely love it, but then say, can I buy this now?
Yeah, so we've actually had a lot of people request that, and I think there's quite a bit of demand for it. I'd say we're not there yet. We're focusing on the borrowing aspect of it for now, but it has been requested, so I'd say it's on our roadmap for one things that we're looking at.
Sure.
And I think it's something for people like you said who are trying games before they buy it. It's that group of people.
Totally. And then if they fall in love with it, it's kind of like, well, I don't want to ship it back because that's cost to you. The game's kind of in our house. We've been playing it. We've been loving it. Can't we just keep it? Okay, I guess there's going to be a bit of that. So games have already started coming back to you already then. What was it like the first time you sent one off, and what was it like when you received the first one back? It's like, I'm very precious with my collection. I'm very happy for people to play with them, but obviously I'm always here overlooking every second of it. Stuff out must be weird. What did it feel like to you?
Yeah, so when we first did our testing, this was one of the things that I like. When it first went out, I was like, oh my god, like I put it in the post and it's gone, and it's kind of just disappeared, and you're kind of waiting for it to arrive at the other end. And obviously with testers at the other end, when it arrived, they took photos and they're like, cool, this is how it arrived. I was like, cool. I was like, go play it, let me know how it goes when it comes back. But yeah, the first ones when they came back, I was kind of opening them. I was like, oh my god, like what's going to happen to them? Did they survive? And I kind of opened it up and I was like, oh yeah, it's just how it was when I sent it out. Like it's it's just a game. It's fine, because I think I had all these worries about would people struggle to pack it together or anything like that, but it was absolutely fine. And I think a part of running a business as well is people are pretty sensible at the end of the day, and a lot of people are used to receiving stuff through the post. So
sure, I think people are pretty respectful of these things, aren't they? In a way, it's not their property, so they've got to look after it. And how does it work? Is it that the packaging that you send it is returnable? You just put the game back in that and flip it back to you?
Yeah, so I'm going to post some photos, depending when this goes out. So I'm going to be posting some photos on my Instagram about how games arrive, and sort of the delivery process. So there'll be some pictures coming up on there, which if you're interested, you can have a look at that. But yeah, they literally, yeah, so sorry, I should have, I've shipped all mine out already. I should have had like a pre-prepared one. But yeah, they come in a little box, and you literally, it's the game components rather than the actual, like the actual outer box. And then when you're done, you just pop the game components back in the returnable box again, and it comes with a little return package.
Sure.
And you just send it back to your little...
With your address on and prepaid envelope and everything, so it's just super simple just to send it right back.
Yeah, so it's literally just pop it back in the box, put it back in the envelope, and send it again. So
sounds great. And continuing the logistics theme, just because this sort of stuff fascinates me, and hopefully, some people watching will be thinking the same sort of questions themselves, because you just want to know how these things work before you try them, right? Do you have some kind of like containment because of COVID, where the game will just be sat there for a few days before you do anything with it to send it back out? Is that the plan?
Yeah, so it's actually really interesting. So normally anyway, we check the games and we clean them in between borrows. But now we've got more guidance in terms of how long it could potentially last on cardboard, which is what most games are made out of. Basically, the guidance is to say to basically quarantine games for 72 hours. So it does slow down the process a little bit, I would say. But it means that at least, sort of there's no concerns about whether there's, COVID transferring between players. And we literally just have like a little box which games go to quarantine in in between borrows. So.
Sure. I mean, I guess there's a day for sending it back and then a day for posting it back out again. So you've got 2 days in the postage backwards and forwards anyway, right?
Yeah.
So I think people can be pretty safe with that. I continually buy secondhand games as well as new ones, and so whenever a game arrives, I always just kind of leave it there for 3 days to start with sort of practice now, which is fun because you get that buzz of it first arriving, and then the buzz of 3 days later when you can actually touch it. But, everyone's just treating COVID differently, right? Aren't they?
Yeah.
So it's good that you've got that policy. So behind you, I can see like a whole stack of games, including like 4 Catans there. They're games that right?
Yeah, so it's obviously one of the things to try and get a variety of games as well, but we have got a little bit more depth for the more popular games. So yeah, Catan's definitely one of the more ones. I don't think so that's Ticket to Ride as well. And Pandemic. I think these are Pandemic. Yeah, you just about to see it must be. These are Pandemic ones up here. These ones.
Yeah, Seven Wonders. So I guess
I recognise them. Yeah.
There's a lot of those sort of classic gateway games there for people just to get a chance to try the hobby. So another massive audience I guess you want to reach for this is people who maybe haven't even tried many board games at all yet, and this could be their first little way to get into it. And instead of paying 30 quid as a gamble, they pay a small amount of money just to try a few out.
Yeah, so I think you nailed it with that term. A lot of people don't know what the term gateway game means, but it's definitely where we're starting in terms of our selection of games. So you're absolutely right. So there's people who they kind of maybe don't know what to play next. They kind of know that they like playing, it's the kind of, they've kind of tried a couple games, maybe they borrowed one off a friend or they've played it with a friend, but they don't really know what to play next. It's really that kind of venture into this whole magical world of games that exists out there now. So I think like the selection that we have is very much sort of those kind of starter games. But one of the things that we're really excited about is how we, so the next level of how we actually bring those more advanced games in as well. So that's kind of watch this space.
Yeah. I guess all the people who are going to be your sort of, early adopters, the first ones on it, they're going to play Catan, they're going to play Pandemic, they're going to play Ticket to Ride, and they're going to be like, right, what's next? So in the time of them going through your current collection, you're going to be building up their sort of next collection for them. It's going to be just like you're going to be sort of dictating these people's next 6, 12, 18 months of games. It's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, but I think that's part of the exciting bit, right? Is that there's so many, and it's how do we bring all these games to people? Because I think there's so many amazing games out there that people either they don't know about it and they don't know where to go next, or it's just totally unaffordable. That how do we bring this whole world of games to them, and then literally to their game table and in the dining table, the living room table.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It kind of reminds me of I've taken literally hundreds of people to board game cafes who have never really played a game before. Like if you say to them, what sort of games you played, they would answer, "Oh, I played like Game of Life and Cluedo." Those kind of people. Nothing wrong with that. It's just they haven't been exposed to board games yet. And so I just ask them a ton of questions about what they like. And the great thing about those sort of gateway games that we're talking about is it answers a ton of those questions. It's just like a narrowing field of, well, if you like Pandemic more than Catan, you're probably going to be more co-op than, some kind of competitive, aggressive take that thing. And that's narrowed the field 50% already. And then if you like this versus that, you do know what I mean? So I feel like there's a really good way that you can narrow down the sort of games that people are going to love, not like. And I think the process of going through your collection is going to be great for them because they're going to be able to figure out themselves, what is it do I actually like? And they might not even know what is the difference between a co-op and a competitive, what is the difference between Catan and Pandemic. They wouldn't even know that to start with. And maybe this is where your site can help that.
Yeah, and I think, so one of the things that we've really tried to do as well is, so I think as a, like when you're new starting out and joining the board game community, it can be a little bit almost intimidating that it's this there's this whole language, and like what is this cooperative, and what is set collection, and what is drafting, like what are all these things? I know that I like Catan. So one of the things that we've really tried to do as well is keep it really simple, and try and just make it as accessible as possible as well. So one of the things that we on the site, if you browse on the site, you can choose how complex of a game you want as well. So we've broken it down by, do you want a beginner game? So maybe you're literally just playing a game with your mom, or you're playing maybe something for your kid's birthday or something like that. And then up to the more sort of we've got beginner, intermediate, advanced, and expert. So depending on sort of where you think you fall, you can just have a browse broken down by that, because I think it can be. Yeah, when you're just starting, it can be quite intimidating. It's almost like choice overload. So that's one of the things that we tried to.
It's a good way to do it. Like I always break it into mechanics, like you're saying, worker placement or area control or whatever. But I've never really thought about it from a weight perspective. But I guess that's a good way to do it, especially if you're coming into this hobby from a fresh place. I think that's a really easy way to do it. So what games are on Expert? Have you got your site in front of you now? Can you? Is that unusual? What your expert game?
I can bring it up. So, Small World, for example, we'd class as an expert. Betrayal, House on the Hill. Through the Ages, which is an interesting one because it's one of the top. It's one of the top 100, I think, like top 20, maybe even Board Game Geek ones.
Yeah.
But I'd say it's still very niche. So
it's a long game. It takes a few hours to play, and it's a good hour to learn, at least, I would say.
Yeah, that's like for a lot of people we've said sort of spend at least a day if you want to if you want to invest a full day then.
If you enjoy playing any kind of civilization game on PC or console in the 90s, which is a lot of people, try that game.
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely not a beginner game. One of my personal favourites, to be fair, is Brass Lancashire, which I just love the artwork on it. And I think it's sometimes with games you just fall in love with them just because they're so pretty, or just they're so like the artwork is just stunning. So I think that's a favourite for me. Nice. But we've tried as well to try and get a mix of sort of different types of gameplay as well. So a mix of cooperative. Weirdly, cooperative was very popular during lockdown.
There's definitely something for everybody there. I mean, if anyone was watching this thinking, I've got 3 issues of Catan, I've played Pandemic for years. Well, if you haven't tried, Brass Lancashire yet, maybe here's a chance, because that's like a 50 quid game, right? So what's the package on Borrow Game? How can people get into it?
So in terms of the pricing, so it's $9.99 a month, and that gets you access to the entire collection. If you're watching this before the end of July, we're also doing a 50% off your first month. So that's always a good one. And it literally is, so it's $9.99 a month, access to the entire collection delivered to your door, play it for as long or as little as you want, and then it comes with prepaid packaging as well, so you just send it back when you're done.
Postage on top of that. Nice.
Yeah. So when you're done, you send it back.
You have one game until you send that back, you receive it, check it, and then whatever they've got next on their wish list comes back.
So they need to choose the next game. So it's very much about giving people as much choice as possible. So they choose the next game they want rather than us sort of being like, oh, we're going to send you this one because that's one we think you want.
Okay, so as long as the game that they've chosen is available in your collection, that's the one they get. It's not like you choose 10 and they get 1 from 10. It's the one that they've specifically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's very it's giving people as much choice, and I guess because a lot of people know what they want to play as well. They've shortlisted the ones that they want to play. So
yeah, I just remember the days of love film back originally when you got DVDs in the post, and I'd put like a whole box set. I think it was like Lost or something, and you'd always get like something in your top 10. And I got episode 3 of disc 3 of Lost first. I'm like, that's just not useful. I mean, if I got sort of Betrayal before Small World, that's fine, but you still kind of want to know what you're going to have to cover.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people as well will, I've spoken to a lot of people who will borrow games for specific occasions. So I've had people ask me, they're like, oh, like I'm going to go see, I had someone recently say that they're going to go see their grandmother, and they wanted something, would kind of recommend anything to go and play with their grandmother. I was like, oh, cool, we'll actually try something, like what do they like, and try some of these. And they borrowed it specifically for that event. So I think that's really important as well, is giving people sort of the choice over what it is that they can play.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, it certainly sounds like a wonderful thing, whether you're a beginner gamer, whether you're somebody who's just looking to build your collection or your awareness of things, or you're somebody who's got a massive collection and you just haven't quite got the ability to spend 50 quid on that brand new game right now. I mean, £10 a month seems like a really good value for me. You get to keep the game for as long as you want, right? So play it until you want to try something else again. That sounds like a really good option. I wish you the very best with the business. It sounds really good, and I'm so glad that you guys are around, because like I said, there was one person that did this before and it was so good. I don't know why they went away. I'm so glad that you guys are here now. So where do people go? borrowagame.com?
That's the one, yeah. Borrowagame.com. We're also on Instagram and Facebook at borrowagame. So you can always follow us there if you're into those into those social media ones. Yeah.
Well, I'll post the links for all of those things wherever it is that you're happen to be watching this. Sheila, it was lovely talking with you. I wish you all the best for the business. It sounds wonderful. I hope it really takes off for you. And for me, you're doing wonderful work. You're putting board games into people's houses, and for that, I applaud you. Thank you for your time.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was great chatting.